Hello, everybody. Jonathan Pulley here with West Coast Weather. Today is December 14th, and we got a lot to talk about today. More impactful weather is on the way following this last week of flooding and historic flooding that's occurred. And unfortunately, we have another strong atmospheric river that's on its way, as you can see here on the satellite imagery on the screen right now. You can see this narrow, intense column of moisture that you can see streaming from Hawaii down here all the way up in the Pacific Northwest, a classic Pineapple Express type of system. Going to bring some more warm, moist air over the region, leading to high snow levels and more heavy rains. Thankfully, it doesn't look to be as organized or as impactful as the last atmospheric river, but it's not going to take a lot to make the rivers rise again and get into flood stages again as well. We also got windstorm potential this week. We got a 1-2 punch of weather systems over the next few days. So this video is going to be a little bit longer than normal, so maybe go grab a cup of coffee or a cup of hot chocolate or maybe some orange juice or wherever you like, and let's dive into things. So looking at the upper air map to start out, to give us a good general idea of what the weather pattern is looking like, we got this big ridge of high pressure that's to our east, and we got a trough to our west. This is kind of what we call our like a classic atmospheric river type pattern. We're in this in between the trough and the ridge, and that causes the jet stream to flow right over us out of the south, and that's bringing that warm subtropical moisture into the area, leading to heavy rains, especially in the mountains, because atmospheric rivers are very the moisture is mostly in the low levels, so that the mountains really block that moisture and wring it out like a towel. And that's why we get most of the heavy rainfalls in the mountains with these type of events. So as we play this out, time here is on the left. As we play this out here, these are 6-hour increments. This is later today and this afternoon and evening. You can see this trough kind of sits here. Thankfully, this atmospheric river doesn't look to be as sustained as last week. It doesn't look to last for like 3 or 4 days. But it the moisture level is a little bit higher with it, so that might counteract some of the faster movement. So that atmospheric river moves through, and then snow levels thankfully look to start dropping by Tuesday and the Wednesday as that trough starts coming down closer. Then we get a potential for a windstorm Tuesday night in the early Wednesday as a deepening low moves in the southern BC and causes a strong westerly winds to move over the area. However, there's a good bit of disagreement with exactly how that will go. And then we look to have additional systems as a strong trough of low pressure hangs over pretty much all of Western Canada and parts of the Pacific Northwest as we go through this weekend, dropping snow levels, thankfully. And we look to start finally building our mountain snowpack. So hopefully that will remain, and we won't get any more of those warm atmospheric rivers for at least the next couple of weeks, because we really need to start building up the snowpack. And I know the skiers really want that as well. And we're not going to look that far into the future because we got a lot to talk about just the next few days. So let's take a closer look at the west coast of North America. Here's Washington, Oregon, California. This is looking at 6-hour precipitation type of inches. Blues and purples are snow, and the greens are rain, of course. And we got sea level pressure in millibars, and here's the ISO bar showing the constant lines of pressure. So let's play this out. This is this afternoon, kind of right as this video should be uploaded by now. You can see our narrow column of moisture starting to approach the region, really coming into the area as we go through tonight into Monday morning. Look at these rainfall rates. You can see it's going off the charts for Vancouver Island. That's over 2 inches in a 6-hour period. Then that starts moving to Olympics and the Cascades, really, and the snow levels. Look at how there's hardly any snow falling over the mountains of the Cascades, the Olympics. Thankfully, maybe parts of the northern coastal mountains of southwest BC might be getting some snow, but even the snow levels are going to be super high for parts of the coastal mountains just north of Vancouver, leading to increased threat of landslides and river flooding as well. And then thankfully, snow levels start to drop as we go into Tuesday, but we continuously get rain into the foothills and the lowlands as well. So the river levels are likely to still keep increasing as we go through Tuesday into Wednesday morning before the snow levels really start to decrease. And the European model even starts bringing some lower snow levels this weekend, maybe for parts of the lowlands as well. But that's we got plenty to talk about before that even happens. There may be another secondary atmospheric river that moves into Oregon on Thursday and the Friday, but there's disagreement involving exactly what happens with that, and that looks to start moving the Northern California as we go through Friday into Saturday. So now looking at the general idea of snow rainfall totals, as the snow levels are really high up, well over 7,000 feet high, you can see that through Monday evening, we got a lot of rainfall coming from the mountains, another 3 to 5 inches for much of the Cascades, maybe even approaching 6 to 8 inches for the parts of the Olympic Mountains, the coastal mountains of Southwest British Columbia, and especially Vancouver Island, where isolated totals could approach 10 to 12 inches, and even parts of the Northern Cascades and the mountains just north of Vancouver, BC, could be approaching 10 inches to maybe a foot of rainfall in some isolated higher elevation locations. Thankfully, it looks like the lowlands, we might max out around a ½ inch to an inch of rainfall for the lowlands. This is an average of a bunch of models, so some of these rainfall totals are likely going to be higher than what this is showing. But look at the big rain shadow over Sequim. No wonder we call it the banana belt of the Pacific Northwest. Look at that, almost showing 0 rainfall just off the coast of the beaches of Sequim and Port Townsend there. Even Whidbey Island may be getting only a quarter of an inch of rain at most over the next 36 hours. But you can see precipitation starts increasing for the entire region as we go through this week, and we'll start getting rainfall. The lowlands will really start getting the rainfall the middle of this week as that more systems encroach on the area. Thankfully, this snow levels will start dropping and won't be as high as on Monday. So we should start getting more snow in the mountains, especially as we start going through this weekend. But river levels will remain high. So let's see what we are seeing with the atmospheric river itself. You can see the past 7 days we've had Category 4 atmospheric river over much of the Pacific Northwest, almost approaching Cat 5 in some locations. And then for the next 7 days, so the next few days, we'll likely get another Cat 3, Cat 4 atmospheric river on Monday. And why we call it an atmospheric river, it's mostly just because it looks like a narrow column of moisture that looks like a big sky river. You can see this is, we measure the strength of atmospheric rivers via integrated water vapor transport. That's short for IVT. It's basically just a measurement of all the moisture in the air and stuff. And you can see why we call it an atmospheric river. It's not the scare or make it sound fancier than it needs to be, but it's just kind of, that's what it looks like. Look at this. It just looks like a big river of moisture flowing right into the West Coast. Most of these atmospheric rivers are actually very beneficial to the West Coast, and it's usually how we get most of our rainfall during the water year. But when we start getting multiple atmospheric rivers and strong ones into the same area, one week after another, it starts causing major problems. And last week, just that one atmospheric river caused historic river levels on multiple of the major rivers across Washington state. The Snohomish and Skagit rivers reached and passed their records from 1990. And I know the Puyallup River also hit the record. The Cedar River in Renton also hit the record. So it was a pretty crazy event. And that's why not all atmospheric rivers should be categorized in the same level. Most of them tend to be beneficial, but when we get these big Cat 4, Cat 5 ARs, atmospheric rivers, they can start to cause major problems over the area. And unfortunately, we saw that last week. The town of Hamilton was almost basically completely underwater. I actually went over there with my friend Benjamin Yurkovich from the Washington Weather Chasers. And the town of Hamilton up there along the Skagit River was basically completely underwater. Water was up the roofs of houses. It was insane, the sea, and it's really sad that people's lives were like completely changed from that event. And I know the Snohomish River Valley also flooded. There was farmlands just completely underwater and stuff. So that's why we were really hammering that in the impacts. And thankfully, this incoming atmospheric river doesn't look to be as intense or impactful, but there's going to be some flooding in locations, and I'll show you here right now at the river level forecast. So the squares around these rivers are the forecasts, and the circles in the middle are what actually is happening right now. So purple is major flood stage forecasted. Red is moderate flood stage, and minor flood stage is orange, and then yellow is just action stage. So you can see, look at this, the Skagit River is forecast on Tuesday night and Thursday morning. So the river levels are going to be pretty high all the way through Thursday as we continuously get rainfall in there. Even when snow levels start increasing on Tuesday and Wednesday, there's still going to be a lot of rainfall falling in the low to mid levels of the mountains. So the Skagit River is expected to crest 2 more times above major flood stage. Nowhere close to the historic levels that reached on Thursday and Friday a few days ago. But look at this, we're going to be getting major flood stage again, and that's major flooding. And so we shouldn't downplay that just because it's not reaching record levels, it's not going to be impactful for some areas. The ground is so saturated, and there's already been so much erosion. So there's going to be just additional impacts as these rivers increase again. Here's the Snohomish River and Snohomish. You can see it probably will get in the minor flood stage on Monday and the Tuesday. And then it looks to crest even higher on Wednesday and the Thursday. These forecasts will obviously change as the rainfall forecasts change. River level forecasting is a pretty complicated process because you have to take into account the potential for snow melt and how much rain is going to be hitting those mountains and flowing into the water basins. So the Skykomish River, let's take a look at that. Looks again the minor flood stage on Monday, and then maybe moderate flood stage on Wednesday. And then let's take a look at the White River down there in Auburn. I heard that there's been some evacuations in Auburn over the last day. Look at this, Auburn all the way through this week. The White River is expected to remain in moderate flood stage. And I heard they've been releasing water from the dams so that the dams don't have damage and stuff to them. And that's why there's this river forecast for down there is going to be so high through the entire week and in the next weekend. It's because of that. So unfortunately, flooding is going to continue to happen around those areas. Look, Snoqualmie Falls looks to reaching the moderate flood stage by Wednesday as well. So good. So the falls are going to be roaring again as well. Let's look at the Snoqualmie River Incarnation. May even start almost getting the major flood stage on Wednesday as well. So a lot of the area rivers are going to get into at least moderate flood stage again, and some major flood stages are possible. Unfortunately, I can't look at the rivers up in Southwest BC, but they're going to be getting impacted a bit more than last time. So the rivers like the Coquitlam River and the Fraser Rivers and stuff are going to be flowing really high up in Southwest British Columbia. So landslides are probably going to be the more major threat compared to the river levels compared to the last few days, because the soil is just so saturated that the cliff faces and steep hills are just going to have so much water running down them, and that's going to lead to loose soils and potential for landslides. I know Highway 2 Stevens Pass has been closed down. I'm not even sure if it's reopened yet. The road's been washed out in some areas. There's been many mudslides and landslides and rock slides. So I'm really worried about the landslide potential this coming week, especially. So now let's start talking about the wind. The wind is going to be the other impactful thing this week, especially since soil levels are going to be so high. Moisture levels in the soil are going to be so high. Trees may get uprooted easier than they would normally would with the winds that are wind speeds that are expected for the upcoming week. So that's why we really need to watch these winds a bit more than what we would normally be looking at for. So right now, this is the GFS model on the left and the European model on the right. So this gives us a comparison of the two different main models. And so we can kind of see how they're agreeing and disagreeing. So here comes the atmospheric river on Monday and the associated low pressure system. You can see this steep north to south pressure gradient over parts of from basically western Oregon to southwest BC. This is going to lead to strong southerly winds across the region. Then the low pressure system moves inland, and then we get a strong pressure gradient over the Cascades. This is going to cause that air to get sucked in from the Pacific Ocean and into the Cascades and inland. This will lead This will lead to a westerly surge Monday evening, especially for parts of the northern areas of Washington and along the coast as well. Then winds look to die down, and then we get another low pressure system. This one could be more impactful, and this one has full-blown windstorm potential with it. So the European model has actually been on the weak side of things. However, it still shows this deepening low that moves into central and southern British Columbia and Alberta. This is kind of a more classic westerly surge windstorm scenario, because you get the low pressure system developing to the east of the Cascades, and that causes that air to get sucked in from the ocean and through the Strait of Juan de Fuca, the Chehalis Gap, and the Strait of Georgia as well. The European model has a weaker pressure gradient, but the GFS has been consistently showing a much stronger pressure gradient that would lead to a potential for a full-blown windstorm in some areas of western Washington. So we're going to be needing to watch this, and there is going to be potential for some pretty strong winds Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. And let's look at the winds over the next couple of days. You can see breezy winds over the west parts of western Washington, Whidbey Island, up to Bellingham, along the waterways as we get this atmospheric river approaching from the west. Winds will only increase through this afternoon and evening, with gusts likely approaching maybe up towards 60 miles per hour for some areas from basically Whidbey Island up towards Bellingham, generally around 45 to 55 miles per hour with isolated gusts to 60 miles per hour. However, some models are showing an interesting feature showing up Monday late morning and afternoon that could potentially cause some pretty strong winds over parts of the Kitsap, southern Whidbey Island, and the western Snohomish County area as a lee low develops over the Olympic Mountains. Basically, a lee low. Let's look at the upper level winds here. So a lee low, you can see this right here, kind of on this graphic. So when you get these strong upper level winds, this is about 5,000 feet. These are sustained winds over 80 miles per hour hitting the mountains. And what this happens, it causes the air to go over the Olympic Mountains and descends over like areas like Sequim and Port Townsend. That causes the air to warm and dry as it descends the mountain, the leeward side of the Olympic Mountains. And it causes a localized area of warmer air that leads to lower pressure over a localized area, and that's what we call a lee low. And these can cause localized stronger winds for parts of Whidbey Island along the Kitsap. It's what caused the Hood Canal Bridge to get destroyed in 1979. That led to a very intense, abnormally intense lee low, caused up towards 120 mile per hour wind gusts along the Hood Canal. We're not looking like anything like that level with this event, but it's why we need to watch out for these localized wind events, because they can be very destructive. So if we look at the HRRR model as we go through tonight and into Monday, a reminder that time and date is up here in the top left. As we go through evening, tonight, a Sunday night, into Monday morning, the strongest winds look to happen Monday morning, the southerly winds across the Puget Sound. The Puget Sound will likely also begin gusts of 35-40 miles per hour, especially with the saturated soils, will likely lead to increased tree damage and power outage chances compared to what we would normally have with these winds. And here we go. Here's what the HRRR model has been consistently showing this leeward low windstorm a bit more than other models. And basically shows this corridor of gusts, basically 55 to maybe even 65 miles per hour from the Kitsap towards Snohomish County. The HRRR often shows over-exaggerates these. However, some other models are also showing it, so it gives it a bit more credibility than normal. And a lot of times when these happen, the actual strongest winds tend to happen to the north of where it shows, so like parts farther north up Whidbey Island and Camano Island and stuff like that, and over towards Port Townsend. So let's just say generally basically from this late tonight, Sunday night, through Monday around noon, early afternoon, there's going to be general wind gusts of 40 to 55 miles per hour across western Washington from the coast up towards Bellingham, with localized areas, especially around the Whidbey Island, western Snohomish, Kitsap area, approaching maybe 55 to 60 miles per hour with highly isolated areas of gusts to 65 miles per hour as well. If we get gusts to 65 miles per hour, there's going to be a lot of damage, especially with the saturated soils and stuff. So let's hope that does not happen. And then another feature that comes in Monday afternoon that I'm watching is this westerly surge coming down the Strait of Juan de Fuca. I want to zoom in here for this. Before I do that, there's also going to be really strong winds over the Cascades. Probably the mountains are going to be getting a downsloping windstorm. Likely some gusts on the east side of the Cascades approaching 70, 80 miles per hour in those higher mountains. I know they just got a downsloping windstorm around the Leavenworth and Wenatchee area a couple of days ago, leading to immense tree damage. So another one of those type of events could be happening on Monday, pretty much the entire day. There's also going to be strong winds for basically all the way out the Spokane and the mountains of northern Idaho as well. So now looking at Western Washington specifically. So we can see the winds increase tonight into Monday morning. Then you see that leeward strong winds. You can see that see this odd feature that kind of bands basically almost from the Cascades all the way to the Olympic Mountains. It's likely over exaggerating that a bit, but there is potential for some gusts up towards 60, 65 miles per hour if that does actually occur. So here comes the westerly wind surge around Monday afternoon, probably around noon to 3 p.m. It will hit Whidbey Island, the San Juans. This looks to actually be a pretty widespread one, from potentially from central northern Whidbey all the way up to Bellingham. And let's look at the sustained winds. This gives us a better picture of things. So let me go back to the westerly surge. You can see it start coming down the Strait of Juan de Fuca and plowing right in the Whidbey Island. It's probably going to be a quick hitting event. The strongest winds will likely only last for a couple hours. However, it looks to remain gusty, though locally windy all the way through Monday evening for parts of the area. But look at these strong winds over the mountains as well. It's going to be really, there's probably going to be a lot of trees down in the mountains and stuff like that, especially up in the backcountry. But you can see if some sustained winds may be approaching 40, 45 miles per hour with this westerly surge. These are very localized events, so it could be a bit weaker or stronger than what this is showing. Malls have a hard time with these really localized wind corridors like the Strait of Juan de Fuca. But most malls generally have at least gusts 45 to 55 miles per hour for parts of areas along the Strait of Juan de Fuca up towards the San Juans as well. So definitely potentially get a 1-2 punch on Monday, southerly winds and then westerly winds for Whidbey Island up the Bellingham area. You can see even though winds look to turn westerly for the Puget Sound as well, but generally those gusts should be around 30 to 40 miles per hour down there. Then we like to calm down before winds could pick up again on Tuesday morning as a low pressure system ahead of the next main storm system moves in. We'll probably bring some localized windy conditions for parts of the area early on Monday. So now let's take a look at the storm late Tuesday night into Wednesday. So we play this out. You can see the westerly winds from the Monday system die down. Then you can see the little localized small low pressure system kind of spinning up right there. And then here comes the next storm system. It kind of develops as it comes in, brings strong southerly winds again. And then look at this westerly surge that comes in right here. Maybe bring some gusts up towards 50, 60 miles per hour for places along the Strait of Juan de Fuca. There's quite a bit of disagreement. The European mall is a bit weaker. However, its ensemble mean of its 50 different models, European models that are averaged out, is actually quite a bit stronger than the regular deterministic model. So that gives me a higher confidence in the stronger wind scenario actually happening. And other models like the RDPS, this is the high risk Canadian model, are also showing this. Look at this. The Canadian model is actually showing maybe some gusts approaching 65 miles per hour for parts of Whidbey Island. Even almost off the Skagit as well. This could be a more classic westerly surge windstorm, and it's going to bears close watching, and it could be pretty extended. It basically shows westerly winds from basically 11 p.m. on Tuesday night, and basically remaining gusty to windy all the way through Wednesday morning. So we could get like 6 hours of strong damaging winds on Tuesday night and the Wednesday. So I'll have more updates on this on my other social media platforms, like on X/Twitter, whatever you want to call it. I'm Jonathan Pulley, and my X handle is Would-Be Weather Guy. Would-Be WHIDBEY. Capital W, capital X, Guy, just GUY on X. And then I also run the Whidbey Island weather page on Facebook as well, if you want to check in on there as well. So just thought I would share that. So then we look to calm down with the winds later on Wednesday as well. So that's going to wrap things up for this video. I know that was a lot of information to go through. You can take your time and go through through this forecast video a bit slower than normal to really take in all the details. But more impactful weather is incoming. The summary is basically we got this atmospheric river that's moving in currently and going to be bringing flooding rains to parts of the Pacific Northwest from Monday all the way through Thursday morning, basically, as we get continuously more systems as we go through the week. The first set of strong winds looks to come in on late tonight, Sunday night, into through Monday evening for a lot of the area. And then we got another round of strong winds Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, where there's a bit of a disagreement, but generally some wind gusts 40 to 60 miles per hour with locally higher are likely across many portions of Washington, and maybe in parts of Southwest BC, especially along the southern Vancouver Island, along the waterways of the Strait of Georgia as well. So I hope everybody had a great weekend. I bet everybody's kind of tired of this really active weather pattern, but we look to remain active through much of December. So the forecasting mode for me is going to be going into overdrive and remain there for the time being. So anyways, I hope everybody's having a great day. Please just hit the like button, subscribe buttons down below to get this video and all this information out. It causes the YouTube algorithm to realize that people want to watch this and see this, and we can get the word out for and help people realize the more impactful weather that's incoming. So anyways, take care, everybody. God bless, and I'll talk to everybody in the next forecast video.